We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insight, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you is Tuesday, December 30th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Ki.
Good morning.
Good morning, and also Grace is with us.
Great to be here.
Great to have you. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's the second day of the final week of 2025, and we're continuing our year-end reflection on the issues that have shaped our society and the lives of young people over the past year. So today's topic is one that almost everyone has strong opinions about, and it's a conversation that can easily go on for hours. So Ki, do you find that more people around you are getting married, planning families, or have recently gone through life changes?
Well, pretty much at my age, all my friends are pretty much married. Yet, I've definitely noticed a recent increase because I've been receiving many more requests to host a wedding.
I see.
And first birthday celebrations. And I've been to a lot of wedding ceremonies. As a matter of fact, just last weekend, I've been to 3 of them, and I've hosted 2 of them.
3 in 1 week? That sounds long.
Yeah.
Have you seen this happen as well?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a lot of friends who are already married with children, like he said, as well as couples who are planning to get married and have kids soon. And you know, we always hear about how South Korea's birth rates has hit rock bottom. But honestly, when I go to my doctor for my regular pregnancy checkups, there's always a minimum hour wait, and there are so many patients at the clinic. I also recently called the postpartum center, actually, that I'm supposed to stay at after giving birth. And I wanted to extend my stay from 2 weeks to 3, but then I heard that they're not able to accommodate me because there are so many new moms waiting, like on the waiting list, waiting for cancellation. So yeah, the answer was no.
Wow, that's such an interesting contrast. So on paper, we hear about record low birth rates, but on the ground, your experience obviously tells a very different story. So we're going to dive deeper into this topic, but first, let's take a look at the screen. South Korea has long been known for struggling with one of the world's lowest birth rates. But this year, we're starting to see signs of change with births gradually ticking up. That shift comes as marriages are also on the rise, hinting at a possible turning point. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at a low birth rate country at a crossroads. What's different about marriage and birth trends in 2025? What's driving this momentum, and what needs to change in 2026 to keep it going? As we just saw in the video, South Korea may be seeing early signs of a demographic shift, with both marriages and births edging up this year. For a country long defined by record low birth rates, even small movements can feel significant. So when we look at the latest numbers, are we actually seeing signs of change this year, Ki?
Sure, it's actually surprising. South Korea's number of newborns has been increasing for 16 consecutive months. In particular, births in September surpassed 22,000, marking the highest figure since 2020. The total fertility rate has also rebounded from a record low of 0.72 in 2023 to 0.75 last year, and is projected to rise further to 0.8 this year and even 0.85 next year, suggesting a 3-year upward trend. While some argue this may be only a temporary rebound, marriages, an important leading indicator of birth rates, continue to rise. So if you take a look at the screen now, more people are willing to get married and more people want children. So we see a 6.7% increase in people wanting to get married, and we see a whopping 11.2% increase in response for people to have children. So just like that, more positive perceptions around marriage and childbirth are being observed, leading some to interpret this as a possible signal of structural change rather than a short-term fluctuation.
So while some remain a bit cautious about calling this a full rebound, there are indicators suggesting this may not just be a temporary bump, no pun intended. So what factors do you see as driving this recent increase, Grace?
Well, the rise in birth rates appear to have been largely influenced by the increase in marriages and newlyweds starting to have children following the COVID-19 pandemic. Furthermore, expanded policy efforts for families with children is also expected to have influenced this shift in people's desires to grow their families. And we're seeing employment patterns among women in the span of their life cycle also change. In fact, as we can see in the graph, the female employment rate for women in Korea is high in the 30s, but it tends to decline as they enter their 40s and onwards when they experience breaks in their careers due to marriage, childbirth, and child care, leading to a phenomenon that's referred to as the M curve. And we can also see that the employment rate among women in their 30s increased significantly this year compared to 10 years ago in 2015 from 53% to 73%, mainly on the back of government efforts to promote work-life balance and encourage men to become increasingly involved in childcare and housework. And industry insiders say that the employment rate for married women with children also hit a record high of 64% this year. And last year, the rate of male parental leave surpassed 10% for the first time ever.
And what's important to point out that it isn't just about the numbers, but also there's policies that have really impacted everyday life. So, there's so many of these changes that the government is also pushing for. Have they also influenced your decision to have children?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was always open to having kids, whether or not I had policy support. But now that I'm experiencing it firsthand, it's definitely nice to have access to various support measures, mainly financial and childcare support. In terms of financial support, central and local governments provide different kinds of stipends for regular checkups and ultrasounds and blood tests, as well as milestone events like tests for genetic abnormalities, which help a lot because medical costs can get really expensive. And because I live in Seoul, the city government even provides a transportation stipend. And they sent us our first ever baby books as well. Wow. Another great benefit from the government is support for a nanny that's going to be helping out for a few weeks after I give birth, which is honestly really relieving for me because my parents live very far away from me in the US.
I can understand how hectic the first couple of weeks is obviously going to be, and it's actually really interesting that they have this kind of policy, and it also puts broader trends into context. So when we look more closely at the marriage and childbirth trends in 2025, are there any distinctive patterns that are emerging, Keith?
Sure. Even within the same cohort, those born between 1983 to 1995, which luckily I fall in, higher marriage and birth rates are seen primarily among individuals who hold stable full-time jobs, earn higher labor income or housing. This points to a concerning polarization in marriage and childbirth. At the same time, it also suggests that the issue is less about personal values and more about access to social and economic resources. If these structural constraints are addressed, there remains room for an additional rebound for sure.
So even within the same generation, access to stability obviously seems to matter, sometimes just more than values alone, which is the reality. So at the same time, Grace, there are also some characteristics that are unique to Korea showing up in the data. What kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, while South Korea's birth rate is among the lowest in the world, the rates for multiple births, like for twins and triplets, are among the highest. And now the most obvious reasons are the increase in childbearing age and the advancements of medically assisted reproductive technologies, including infertility treatments. Also, there are many people who find that having and raising multiple children through a single pregnancy and a birthing process is actually more convenient, and this is said to be a uniquely Korean phenomenon, maybe because of the nature of Korean society that values efficiency.
That's really interesting. So that suggests not just demographic change, but a shift in how people approach childbirth itself. So beyond birth methods, are we also seeing changes in family formation, social norms around marriages, Keith?
For sure. The share of the birth outside of marriage is also on the rise. So last year alone, the rate reached a record high of 5.8%, suggesting that the traditional notion that having children must follow marriage is gradually weakening, while more diverse family structures are gaining social acceptance. There's notably a very high proportion of cohabiting couples who live together without legally registering their marriage are from the MZ generation, those in their 20s and 30s. In Korea's traditionally conservative society, premarital cohabitation was once considered taboo, but today, however, there is a growing view that if marriage is being considered, living together beforehand can be a practical step, and many couples also choose cohabitation as part of marriage preparation or as just a simple way to reduce their housing costs. Overall, this reflects a broader shift towards prioritizing partnership and quality of life within a shared living relationship, rather than placing primary importance on the institutional meaning or formal sequence of marriage.
So everyone's perspectives and situations different, which is why I can see why people are becoming more, flexible with these kind of stuff. So to get a more global perspective, we're going to talk to someone from a country that's also long battled low birth rates. That conversation will come right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out Channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Laura from Spain, another country that, like Korea, has been facing a long-term low birth rate. So hello, thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So how have marriage and birth rates looked like in Spain this year?
Well, it's striking how, despite the distance, Spain and Korea show remarkably similar demographic trajectories. And you guys were saying how in Korea, marriages have been rising little by little, and so has in Spain. But this increase occurred also with the continued rise of average age of marriage. So now we're talking about people in their mid to late 30s getting married instead of younger generations. Which actually affects the fertility rate as well, because it remains in around 1.1 children per woman. So we could see a little bit of a rise, but it's not as clear as in South Korea. So we cannot really see that there's a rebound. We cannot say there's a rebound yet.
Mm-hmm. So well, we mentioned some of the reasons already, but what factors contributed to those low birth rates last year?
Well, basically, it's the economic insecurity and the delayed independence. Youth unemployment, it actually remains at around 25 to 26% in around those under 25, which is the highest rate in the European Union. The salaries are about 1,500 euro per month, but it has been proven that in the major cities, it almost takes 40 to 45% of your salary to rent a house. And it's not even a big house. It's going to be like a one room or a shared room. So that is going to make it very, very hard for Spanish people to, well, first of all, to form a couple. And second of all, to get married and have children. So most of Spanish people, they live with their parents until their very late 30s. And that is why delayed marriage and also low birth rate.
Then Lara, what conditions would need to be in place for people to seriously consider marriage or having children?
Well, obviously, it's going to be long-term economic security, but also stable jobs and affordable housing. And then, as well as in Korea, then family-friendly work environments. You were mentioning about the nanny. By the way, congratulations on your pregnancy. And I don't think we have access to that in Spain. We do have a lot of free education because most of the system is covered by the government. However, it is not as easy to access since it's for free, then it is not easy to access it. There's like a long way for waiting. And then it is also very difficult to find somewhere that is suitable for you. So yeah, family-friendly work environment would be another condition.
I think it's so interesting how obviously Korea and Spain are in completely different continents, but at the core of it, I guess financial concerns are really plaguing a lot of young people in both countries.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting because even historically, both countries have had a very similar economical development. Even in the late 20th century, they both had a very high economical development, and then they both have had the very similar demographic charts. So when you see the charts in the OECD or in all of these reliable sources, you see that Spain and Korea are usually hand in hand, like one is in front of the other. It's very weird in a nice way.
Right. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today, and we learned a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we just heard from a young person from Spain about how marriage and birth trends are unfolding there. So we wanted to know your thoughts as well. So we asked on the Arirang News YouTube channel, what is most essential for marriage and childbirth? So here's what the results showed. Majority of respondents point to having a stable job, accounting for 56%. Home ownership followed at 18%, while 13% said a high-paying job was the key factor. Another 13% cited other considerations, highlighting that while priorities vary, economic stability remains the most dominant concern. So what stands out from these results is that financial stability really does matter, but it's not just about income. Obviously, support systems and ability to raise children without feeling isolated or pressured clearly also plays a major role. So for those who have had children or are raising them right now, Ki, what kinds of support do you think are most helpful before childbirth or while raising a child?
Well, I agree with most of the viewers right there, and as a dad of a 6-year-old kid, more than anything else in general, marriage and also the childbirth requires stability, stable jobs, stable income, stable housing. When people feel secure about their future, they're far more willing to commit to long-term relationships and start the family, obviously. And from a public policy point of view, it's the same. What matters the most is reducing uncertainty in everyday life. That means consistent government support for employment stability, affordable housing, childcare, and work-life balance. Financial measures especially, not just money given for the birth of a child, but for the caring of the baby at the child care center, education at the kindergarten, and so on. So when the state helps ease the financial and practical burden of marriage and child rearing, individuals are far more likely to make those life decisions with confidence.
Right. So as someone who's actually carrying a child right now, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with Ki. Financial stability is very important. And like I mentioned before, the financial and childcare measures from the government are very helpful in encouraging new moms and dads when it comes to having children, because they're, honestly the most practical ways to support parents. And I think these policies allow parents to raise their children and also carry on in their careers at the same time, which is important in creating also a perception that having kids is not like a 100% life sacrifice or very burdensome, maybe like it was in previous generations.
So what's striking is that these supports go beyond one-time benefits. They point to deeper structural issues around work, housing, care, and also social expectations. So if we want this upward trend to continue, what changes do you think are essential in 2026?
The birth rate itself is not ultimately an outcome, not the root issue. What's needed is sustained effort to ease structural pressures. Like, we're going back to the same point as housing, employment is so hard, especially when you live in Seoul. At the same time, social welfare systems and public attitudes must continue to evolve to better recognize and support diverse family structures. Like we said before, we have so many different, not the traditional one, but new types of families. Without addressing these underlying conditions, any change in the birth rate is likely to remain limited and temporary.
Right, I think it's so important to really tackle the money issues.
Exactly. As you raise a kid, you're not there yet, but as you raise the kid, you realize, oh, you're going to need more and more and more money. So that's actually reality. We can't forget about that.
Right. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I hope that we can see the continuation of support measures like this, the ones that we covered today, because I think it's too early to say that we've tackled the issue of low birth rates in South Korea just by looking at the improved recent numbers. It's definitely a larger systemic problem that needs constant attention by lawmakers, as well as individuals and society as a whole.
So what we're seeing isn't a dramatic turnaround, but it's still a significant shift, and whether this momentum lasts will depend less on individual choices and more on whether society creates the conditions that make those choices possible. So as Korea heads into 2026, the challenge isn't simply raising numbers, but sustaining change by building systems that support diverse families and real-life choices. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gens will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Ki.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Also, Grace.
Thanks for having me.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.